Hey everyone, welcome back to the She Found Motherhood podcast. Today we've got another birth story episode. I'm chatting with Sara G, and she shares about her two births that were very different. One hospital birth and one planned, but a little bit unexpected home birth. I had an absolute pleasure chatting with Sara, and I can't wait for you guys to listen to her story right after this quick message. Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. We are doctors Sara and Alicia, maternity physicians and moms who have been through it all. We want to empower you with knowledge so you can have the best pregnancy, birth, and postpartum experience you can.
She Found Health and She Found Motherhood is meant for general medical information only. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. This information does not apply to every situation. If you have questions or if you've received different advice, please contact your healthcare provider. Always seek the advice of your physician or another qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The views expressed by She Found Health and She Found Motherhood and our guests are not representative of any of the institutions with which we are affiliated. Some of our podcast episodes are sponsored so that we can keep getting great info out there to you, our listeners. We only partner with companies that we truly believe in. Some of our links and suggestions may be affiliates, and we would appreciate you using them to help fund this important work. Now let's get to it.
Hello, Sara. Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. And it's so funny because for our listeners, Sara and I actually met in person a few weeks ago because she bought our old kid-style commuter bike.
I am so excited now that the weather is about to get better. I'm going to put my 2-year-old and my little one on a little bit later when she's a bit bigger, and it's going to be awesome.
Oh, it's the best. I loved it.
Mhm.
I loved it. But we're not here to talk about bikes. We're here to talk about birth.
Yeah.
So, Sara, you have two babies, so two birth stories. So which one do you want to share about?
I think I'll go just in chronological order and start talking about my oldest first. So my husband and I started trying to get pregnant, and we're very fortunate that happened really quickly for us. Like I think the second cycle that I
Oh,
was
wow.
trying, and then really fortunate. I realized that's a privilege. And then about 6 or 7 weeks into that pregnancy, I had a miscarriage. And what was really interesting about that for me is I had seen through social media a friend who had documented like a very large number of pregnancy losses. And I woke up in the morning, immediately knew what was happening, and started contacting her and chatting. And I was so grateful because I think the old me would have really sunk into that. And I was really able to feel grief.
Mhm.
And I never took on any guilt or shame that I had thought maybe I might feel in that situation. And nobody owes anybody anything by documenting things that are hard for them on social media. However, that person who did really helped me. And so I had seen a physician who had said, whenever you feel ready again is when the right time is for you. And we got pregnant again before I even got another period.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was pregnant with my now 2.5-year-old. This is all like pre-COVID. So it was very different. I was still commuting to an office, riding my bike, and had a really, in the grand scheme of things, simple pregnancy in the terms of being able to stay as mobile as I really wanted to. I was riding my bike until 2 weeks before he was born, until it almost felt like there was like a head there pressing on the seat. And then I was like, this is weird. But yeah, and then I don't think I've said yet, but I was referred via a friend to a midwife in town. And I'm not sure if we're going to chat more about that, but I checked with her in advance and she was like, oh, this is so exciting.
Yeah.
I have an autoimmune condition called lupus. And so one of the really great things about being a patient here in Victoria is that the relationships between everyone in the medical community is so fabulous. So my midwife referred me to someone in I believe it's called antenatal unit. And so I was able to work with that person and my midwife and my specialist in Vancouver, and just received such excellent care. I can't speak highly enough of how great that all was for me. Yeah.
And who is your midwife? I'm just curious. I know so many of them.
Jane Baker.
Oh, she's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. She was referred to me, through, I think, a friend, that you probably also know. But anyway, so that was really great. And it turned out I had none of the like precursors or like risk factors that could have been a problem because of having lupus.
Mhm.
So in the end, it was like deemed a quote unquote normal pregnancy. And then towards the end, both of my pregnancies, I had the third trimester. a choice.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you can hear the grunting of the baby.
Okay.
And I started to do every possible thing that you could do, either like scientifically confirmed or otherwise, to not go overdue. I was like so determined to spontaneously go into labor without any, like, anyways. So it was like eating dates, taking herbs, going to acupuncture, doing walks in weird ways with like my hips wiggling all over the place, like everything. And in the end, I did. Yeah, I had like a partial rupture of membranes. We woke up one morning and it was like 10 o'clock. And I just felt like this little like weird, awkward leak. And I was like, that's weird. And popped on one of those lovely adult diapers right away. And we started just like puttering in the house and going for walks. And every like 15 or 20 minutes, there'd just be like a little,
Yeah.
but nothing really started for me. And then so later that day, I had checked in with my midwife and she had said, okay, beyond a certain point, if that was a rupture of membranes, then you get into this territory of like bacteria risk and
Yeah.
mediations.
GBS negative, hey?
I was also GBS negative. Yeah, luckily. Yeah. Yeah. And so I don't know if you've probably heard of the Midwives Cocktail.
Oh, yeah, but I don't really know what's in it.
Okay. I'm getting nauseous thinking about it, but I did it. It's castor oil.
Yeah, I was going to say castor oil is going to be one of the ingredients.
You get it over the counter and apricot juice, almond butter. You put that in the blender and then you top it with champagne and you plug your nose and you knock it back and it is laughing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And yeah, I did that. And who knows what of the things it was. But sure enough, labor started and I labored for hours and it was so much more painful down my spine than I ever could have thought. And sure enough, when my midwife came to check on me after I had labeled for a while, she came to the house again. I had back labor and my baby was facing the wrong direction. Is it OP?
OP. Yeah. Looking up.
Yeah.
Sunny side up, we say.
Oh my. Yeah. His head was down, but facing the wrong direction.
Exactly. So he was like looking up at you instead of looking down towards your bottom.
Yeah. He has a scar in the front of his forehead, and I always like joke that's my tailbone. Yeah, and I had labored for hours and made like almost no progress, and my kind of like hips and everything were just locked up around his head, and there wasn't really room for him to move any longer. And so my midwife and I discussed getting an epidural. And so we went in and got an epidural at the hospital. I was lucky to get one quite quickly, and it worked. For me, it worked really well, really quickly. I had no more pain. I was able to sleep for a few hours. And then while I was asleep and my husband was asleep on a little cot on the floor beside me, the baby turned.
Yes. Epidurals can do that, right? Because you totally, your body relaxes and allows the baby to come down and awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, loved it. Thank you, epidural. And then the nurse was they have to do, I'm sure you know this, but the nurses are doing continuous monitoring on you while you're having an epidural. So there's always someone there in the room with you. And she happened to just say, oh, let's just check you out while I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And she was like, oh, yeah, you're 9 centimeters. We need to like wake up the midwife, wake up your husband, get my mom back because my mom had gone home to sleep at our house. And she was like, if you feel like it, if you feel the urges, you can start trying to push. And it's a good thing everyone got there really fast because I started to push and my midwife was like saying kind of things like, that was good, or wow. You like really tell when they're saying that.
Yeah.
Does that mean like good, like it's going to be a minute, or good, we have to say that and because you're coaching someone for 2 hours?
Yeah.
I should also back up and say that one of the other things I did in pregnancy was pelvic physio. And thank goodness for that. Wonderful. Really like that in combination with having done yoga before, like really having a basic understanding of how to use like breath to open your body was so helpful for me. Anyway, my mom got there and really quickly. And finally someone was like, someone please wake up her husband because the head was starting to. So my mom held one leg and my husband held the other leg. I was on my back. And I pushed Marcus out in 15 minutes.
Amazing. That's your first baby.
Yeah. And also, I'm sorry to everyone who's listening to this if this doesn't happen for tearing. Like a potato cannon.
Did you do a perineal massage?
Yes. And acupressure.
Yeah.
Or like,
totally.
I made some notes, but I can't even remember how many of the like things you could possibly try. I did them all.
You did them all?
Yeah. And so for me, actually, the harder pushing was the that took 30 or 35 minutes. And and then we were transferred to, I guess I should say the baby was a boy.
Yeah.
Everything was great.
Yeah.
It
No
was
bleeding,
like,
no complications.
no bleeding, no complications. There's something with lupus that they check when the baby is born, and that was all fine. I can't quite remember what.
It's usually cardiac stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
And he was just under 9 pounds. So pretty good size.
Whoa, that's a big baby for number one. It's super tall, right?
No, I'm 5'6", but my husband is a giant, and he and his brother were both like well over. So I was expecting it. And in fact, in my extra appointments that I had, because of lupus, you have all these extra ultrasounds, and there, one of the risk factors is actually a small baby. And they quickly saw that was not likely going to be the case. And I think at one point they were like, the ultrasound accuracy is only so good, but just so you know, like an option you can consider is early induction, because this could be a large baby. We were transferred to mom and babe, and everything was normal there. And then the real party started. And that was like the hardest thing for me with my first was breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Holy cow. I had done some hand expression and hadn't gotten any droplets of colostrum out. And I didn't really fully grasp how pivotal the first 24 to 48 hours can be for establishing your supply, not for everybody, but for me, certainly. And I was in a daze, and I don't think advocated for myself enough or saw the warning signs. And so that led to a couple of months of like very challenging feeding. Every like professional or person that stuck their finger in his mouth was like, holy cow, that is a stuck. But his latch was terrible. And so it was just like very uncomfortable. He needed to be supplemented for a while, and I saw a couple of the lactation specialists here in town. And then eventually I was able to wean off of formula and establish like exclusive breastfeeding at, I think he was like 3 or 4 months old.
Good for you.
But
that's a lot of work.
It was a long haul. Like he was a baby that wouldn't be put down, wouldn't go in a stroller, screamed in the car, like choke scream. And so I would hold him with my arms straight out in front of me while pumping, trying not to knock all the parts.
Oh my gosh.
It was so hard. I used to dread the days when my husband went back to work, or if my mom wasn't coming to help, I used to just totally dread those days. It was a really hard time, and it really caught me off guard. Like when I was pregnant, I went to a La Leche League meeting, and I was like, now I know everything. There's what could go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Breastfeeding is, and we prepare for birth, which is like a really tiny amount of time in the grand scheme of things. And then breastfeeding. And it's often hard to get support, right?
Yeah. And even I got this was just before COVID, the pandemic started. And so I was able to have things like lots of in-home support. The La Leche League leader here in our chapter actually like biked over to my house one day and came in and helped me for a while. And I saw one of the physicians here in town that specializes in lactation help like weekly. So I was lucky to even get that help, and it was still so hard. And I was taking domperidone, all of the things. And looking back, my husband and I had a discussion before our second baby was born. So if this happens again, I think that it's not in the best interest of my mental health to push myself that hard, because it was a really hard time. And it only really, once I was able to get him off of formula and start going out and doing things, that was when I started to thrive again.
Yeah.
It was a really hard time. Yeah. And it was before the pandemic. So like I had a couple months there where I was going to the baby boot camps and the library story time. And I was for 5 or 6 hours a day.
Right.
Yeah. And that was like wonderful. And then we got away for a quick family trip to Hawaii with my parents.
Amazing.
And we got back on March 1st as the pandemic
2020.
Yeah. And so since Marcus was about like 5 months old, we've been in this, and now I'm in my second maternity leave. And it's a wild time. So my heart really goes out to people who are first-time parents in this and didn't experience what it was like outside even a little bit, because it's just totally different. So if you're out there and that's you, oh gosh, hang in there. It is hard.
Yeah.
So,
I think back to when I was on maternity leave with my kids, and we did mom and baby like music together classes, and I did like the fitness classes, and I did the like sign language classes and swimming lessons, and that was what kept my mental health.
Totally. Yeah. I'm a really social person, and having those outings or like even like scheduled times where you had to get out of the house.
Exactly. Yeah.
So fabulous. Like the help unit, like meet-up baby group thing where everyone was in a circle and half of the people would just cry because of something that was hard for them. And it was just so real and everyone was in it together. And yeah, this is very different. So
yeah. So let's hear about
yeah.
baby number 2.
Hey, Sarah, do you know what I've never asked you? Did you take a prenatal course when you were pregnant?
We did. Even though I'm a maternity care provider, my husband and I thought it would be an important process for us to go through together.
That's so cute. It must have been so hard for you guys to coordinate your busy schedules, though.
Oh, tell me about it. I was a medical resident at the time, and he was working full-time. We really struggled to find a course that would fit our needs and ended up doing a semi-private course that still was challenging to schedule and quite expensive.
Wouldn't it have been nice for you guys to have access to an online course with evidence-based content that you could do from the comfort of your own home or on your own time at your own pace?
You're telling me if I had had access to something like our Pregnancy to Parenthood Prenatal Masterclass, it would have been a game changer.
And that's the big reason we put this course together, to provide parents with access to a reliable, comprehensive prenatal education from the comfort of their own homes and the ability to watch it and rewatch it when and where they choose.
Plus, it's got so much great information about preparing for the 4th trimester, which I'll admit, I felt really unprepared for. We focus so much on labor and birth when we're pregnant without understanding how challenging breastfeeding in the 4th trimester can be.
I hear ya. And that's why we put together such a comprehensive module all about what to expect for the 4th trimester and for your newborn.
If any of you listeners are pregnant and thinking about a prenatal course, I may be biased, but I would 100% recommend our online course. Head on over to www.shefoundhealth.ca/masterclass to check it out.
We promise you won't be disappointed or your money back.
Yeah, okay. We got pregnant again really quickly.
And so how old was Marcus when you guys decided it was time? And how did you decide?
We always talked about having kids about 2 years apart.
Yeah.
And I had also thought about logistically making sure I didn't go back to work for long enough.
Yeah.
At the same time, also giving my body a bit of time to heal. Yeah. And so that was the sweet spot. And we started trying. And they are 2 years apart. And I'll get to that part in a little bit. My friends always joke about how, like, when I put my mind to something, how like I will will it to happen. Yeah. Anyway, so this pregnancy was really different. When I went back to work, I was already a few weeks pregnant. I only found out I was pregnant about a few days before going back to work, but I was working from home. And so my desire to get outside had to outstrip how tired I was. And that didn't really happen. Really didn't move as much at all. And so I was so tired, plus having a toddler around, obviously. He was like 1.5 or so when we got pregnant again. Yeah, I was so tired. And my exercise was going for a walk around the block or even just making sure I'm even and so it was very different. And I was I think the focus of my second pregnancy was just trying to give myself grace about how different it was and how it was true that everybody warned me, when you're tired, you can't really just lie down on the couch all evening because there's a kid that wants to climb on you and play with you and be fed and not in a bad way. Those things are things I really wanted to do. He's so fun, hilarious. Yeah, that was really different. I worked with the same midwife again. And because I knew I'd had a normal pregnancy the first time, I wanted to do as many tests to do with lupus as I could to explore the possibility of a home birth with mine. And as things progressed, it was becoming clear that was going to be an option for me, which I ended up doing. Yeah. And so did all the same things towards the end of pregnancy, all the possible different things I could do to maybe help. And Marcus was born, my oldest, 2 days early. And then this little gal was born 5 days early. So a few more days. And I was joking worried they were going to have the same birthday because their due date was so close. And I went into labor and kind of labored most of the day. And I was expecting it to be really fast because my mom's delivery with her second, my brother, was 5 hours. And I labored all day and nothing happened and my water didn't break and I was working, but not super hard and nothing was really picking up. It was static. And my midwife came in the evening after we put Marcus to bed and was like, "You're not very far along. I think it's still going to be a while yet for you. Your best bet is to try to get some rest because you might have a lot of work to do tomorrow. And hopefully you'll wake up and things will kick into gear. And then she left around 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. And about half an hour after she left, and my mom was here staying over in a guest room, and we had got all our homebirth supplies ready and started to put like plastic sheets under our bed sheets and etc. My midwife left, and half an hour later, my water broke. And then it was just like full throttle. Holy cow, like insane intensity. I remember getting my husband to help me over to the washroom to go to the bathroom and feeling like I had to have a BM.
Yeah.
Which I now in retrospect realize
like
I'm
that.
starting. Yeah. Yeah. But we paged the midwife a couple of times. And when we talked on the phone right before the water broke and right after, didn't really look like it was going to happen like imminently. And my midwife later was like, it was hard to tell. My husband's from Germany and fits all of the stereotypes you ever can think of.
Yeah.
He sounds a bit like a robot. And
my husband is from Germany, generation Canadian, but I'm having a great time.
Oh yeah. He's like that too. He's a permanent resident. So
he's
and so he was like, things look like they are escalating. And so I could really tell that it was imminent. Finally, like 15 minutes later, I was like, call her back. This is happening. I need to push now.
Yeah.
And she could hear me in the background screaming, like all like in a movie, the baby's coming. And I was screaming loud enough that my mom, who was like downstairs on the total other side of the house, could hear me and came upstairs to be like, what is going on? And my toddler, who was down the hall and is like the lightest, wimpiest sleeper, magically just slept through the whole thing.
Amazing.
I don't even know how. Anyways, I got that. I felt, and I was like, Richard, get over here. Mom, you need to call 911 right now. I'm going to have this baby and nobody's here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's very fast, but I don't know. The instinct kind of came over.
Totally.
It was in that time where, calling the ambulance, we're still having challenges. My mom was on hold with 911 for 5 full minutes before getting to a person who would then decide what to do.
Right? Like your baby was probably born by then.
It was. Yeah. So I was like, Richard, get over here, cradle his head. And so Richard caught her on her bed.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, that's amazing. And how was that for you guys? That's an intense experience to go through as a couple when it's not what you were planning.
He doesn't show his cards, as I said.
Yeah.
So I had recaps with him afterwards, and there was nothing else to do but do the thing. I know when I've explained this story to friends, they indicate, like, wow, that sounded really traumatic. And I'm sure for many people, that would be traumatic. Yeah, for sure. But no, it was so instinctual. And then once her head was out, it was like, again, like a 2-push situation. Her head was out and she breathed right away. So that was the big thing I was afraid of.
Yeah.
And one other push pushed out the rest of her body. I'm really sorry. Yeah. I almost feel like guilty talking about that part because I know how long people can push for it.
Okay.
It was like, yeah. So she came out and then Richard caught her and put her on my chest and we just covered us in towels and waited.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was scared because I'd had the epidural. I didn't have a recollection of the feeling of pushing before.
Yeah.
The pressure. But
yeah.
It is really, for me, it was like going to the bathroom, like really need to go now.
Yeah.
And then I know I was thinking of, okay, what can I do to not push and stall until the midwife can get here? And for me, that was not.
No, you can't not push unless you have an epidural. So that's why we often say in birthing people, especially second time without an epidural, if you're like, your body will just do. Right?
Yeah. Oh, it did.
Yeah. Amazing. So she came out all fine, breathing on your chest. You guys were just chilling out.
And then my mom got through to someone on the phone and they were trying to talk about the cord and should we touch it? And I was like, no, nobody touch anything. At a home birth, you have your own midwife. And for me, it was a sole practitioner because I really liked the idea of knowing it was exactly only that person for me. But they have another midwife that comes to your home because it's a professional person for the birthing person and a person for the baby.
Yeah.
And so this woman we've never met before just came crashing through the front door. And she turned out to be a German woman.
Amazing.
Who was here getting her hours so that she could go back and be a midwife into Yukon.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you know her. Anyway, she was fabulous. But yeah, this woman's crashing through the door, and she's the first person. So she's like trying to make sure
Yeah.
the baby's okay and
Yeah.
check everything. And then about, I don't know, but that was probably about 5 minutes after she was born. And then about 5 minutes after that, my midwife showed up and was like,
Mhm.
oh,
She's, oh, good. You've done it.
yeah, that's what she said. She was like, well done. Yeah. So that was all really great. And I'm so glad the toddler did not wake up.
Oh
And
my
then
gosh, yeah.
and then I should say, we thought she was going to come the next day until things got so quick.
Mhm.
But if she had come the next day, they would share a birthday. So
So the next day was his birthday.
Mhm. Yeah. So if she had waited like 2 more hours,
Yeah, I was gonna
they
say it
would
must have been like
birthday.
close to midnight that she was born.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, their birthdays are a day apart.
Wow.
He beat him to the punch.
Gosh.
And then when he woke up the next day, it was like his birthday and a
Oh,
little baby. It was a lot.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
And
house
then the
postpartum with your number two.
totally different. Yeah. No, she ended up having infant jaundice quite
Oh,
badly.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Your son didn't, hey?
Yeah, it's funny because the week after we got back from the hospital doing the light therapy, your episode came out, or I listened to it, about RH negative
Yes. Yes.
stuff. We had ABO incompatibility.
Oh, okay. Then, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was, my understanding is like some amount of jaundice is normal, but in the first 24 hours, jaundice is not
Correct.
normal. And so hers was like her bilirubin levels were really high. Did the 24-hour bilirubin test. And then by the time my midwife got the results and called us, they were so high that we had to go into the hospital like right away. And by the time they retested when we arrived at the hospital, she was like right under the levels of needing like a full blood transfusion.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, really intense. And something else that I wasn't really expecting and had its ups and downs was like, if you don't birth in the hospital and you're not in mother babe, the baby doesn't go to NICU, you go to the
Peds.
youth child peds.
Yeah, the pediatric ward. I know, which is
So
very
we were in
different.
with like there's 4 to a room.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was in with a couple like teenage girls who, yeah, anyways, that was different. But then on the bright side, like I could sleep we were beside each other,
Yeah.
not separated in the night. Yeah. And so that was something I was not expecting. And every time they tried to go off of the light therapy, for her levels would go back up. And it ended up taking a week.
Wow. That's a long
And
time.
so, yeah, it was really hard. We had to leave really quickly, as I had said. And so I left after my toddler had gone to bed, and he just woke up and I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And then in COVID, he can't come into P.
Ugh.
And he actually got like a cold and croup while he was out.
Oh,
So I knew I couldn't see him for a week. It was so hard for him.
Oh,
So
God.
yeah, it took a long time after I got back for him to, I don't know, get used to me again almost.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah. It's a lot of change, right?
Yeah, and because of the pandemic, and he hadn't really been away from us overnight ever,
Yeah.
either of us. Yeah, but so much easier.
Good.
Marcus was breastfeeding until about a month or two before she was born, like not really much. And so I don't actually think like my supply completely stopped.
Yeah.
And because I'd had that experience in the past where it was really hard, once we got into the hospital, she was too jaundiced to even come out from the lights for feed
Yeah.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I was just like, bring the pump,
Yeah.
bring all the things.
Yeah.
And the nurse who was helping me in the first night was like, you should be sleeping. And I was like, no, I will be pumping every 3 hours. Thank you, Bray. I appreciate that.
But that's what you do to get your established supply. You have to empty.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it really did. It came in. I had a ton of colostrum. And like recently I've been having like oversupply, like clogged ducts, like the other end of it. But yeah. Oh, the nurses in the hospital and peds were so amazing though. Yeah. So we finally got home a week later. Marcus was still sick. So I set myself up with the baby we have a basement suite. So that I was hiding away from them and then eventually we came back inside the house and everything calmed down.
Finally,
Yeah.
what a whirlwind that must have been for you.
Yeah. And my husband like doing all of the parenting of our toddler on his own. And my mom was coming and going, but of course then everybody got colds and
It was COVID, so you couldn't be around. Yeah.
and he had to keep taking the 2-year-old through the like drive-through COVID test place to keep making sure it was negative. And he's too little to do the gargling.
I know. Those swabs
Yeah.
are terrible.
They are yucky. Yeah. Yeah. And then everything calms down and she's totally different. Like Marcus, sleeping was really hard. Sleep training, we worked with a consultant for 4 months
Yeah.
to get him sleep trained. And she's just like, trying to it at some point, and there's always things that are easier and harder with every situation, and also there's like the factor of I'm probably a lot more relaxed than I was the first time around.
Yeah.
A lot more easygoing about some of the things. So yeah, feeding is a lot easier, sleeping is a lot easier. It's just a lot of work with multiple children.
Yes, they do. But you know what, a colleague of mine, she says, everybody deserves a second baby. It's just so much easier and you can't articulate how and why, but it's a lot of work because you have a toddler, but that anxiety, that new parent anxiety is just turned down. So you can just be a little bit more
Totally.
and just enjoy a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, it is nice to enjoy her more. I'm hoping this summer that we can do a lot more things because it's a lot of fun. But it's also different in other ways. Like Marcus would only sleep for like naps in contact. So I carried him for every sleep or like latch breastfed him to sleep. So I was always out like hiking and doing things because that was the way he would nap. And she loves the bed. So I'm in the house a lot.
Yeah, it's so different.
It's so different. Yeah, they're so different. And I've been totally amazed with how resilient they both are in terms of getting to know each other and most of the time being very kind to each other. Like that's like wildly exceeded my expectations. She's in the Jolly Jumper right now because if he's here, sometimes she'll become like a little human slingshot. But
yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, what totally different births that you had, right? From like hospital, epidural to home birth. And I love that both stories are really empowering for you, right? Both births were great, just in very different ways.
So different. And it's like you said about needing to have a second, like it feels so, I'm really happy to have had both of these experiences. They're both so different and led to these little tiny people.
I know.
That are,
I know that
they're doing so well.
Cool human beings, right?
Oh,
so much.
Like my 2-year-old, he was like, the other day I got up and he was like, "How are you?" And I was like, he's starting it's not just like saying a couple of words, these sentences, and you can actually have little conversations.
Oh, it's the best.
So fun.
I know.
We're driving. Everybody loves different. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say we were like, speaking of funny things, could say we were driving in the car yesterday and my son, Henry, picked a song to play. And then my 4-year-old goes, "Great choice, Henry."
Oh,
so watching them interact. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that building with the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So any final thoughts you want to share with us, Sara?
Gosh, I would say just ask for help and say yes to help. I'm still definitely working on getting better at that, and being in a pandemic sure doesn't help, but that's the biggest thing I've had to get better at. And then the other thing I've had to get better at is caring less.
Yeah.
Like expectations and like my house.
Yeah.
And like what a perfect meal looks like that I'm putting on my toddler's plate last night. There's a lot of things that are imperfect that are making me enjoy this a lot more.
Good. Yeah. It's such an important lesson. Hey. Yeah. The more kids I have,
definitely very humbling.
The lower my expectations are with each child.
Yeah.
Like just in terms of like my house and meals and laundry and all of the things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, as someone, you can probably get the sense that I'm a planner and maybe a little bit or more than a little bit type A. And so the having children is a very good learning experience for someone like me.
It is. Yeah. Okay. Two final questions for you. In your experiences, what would you say was the hardest part of your birth and postpartum experiences?
Breastfeeding, hands down.
Yeah.
So hard.
So hard. Same as me. And what would you share was the best experience that you think you took away from it? The best thing about becoming a parent and a mom?
Oh gosh, getting to know the people. I felt guilty about this at first, but I'm not the person that like the baby's on their chest. That's a lovely moment. And for some people, it's like instant in love. And that's not the case for me. It's this person that's coming to live with you forever that you're getting to know, and getting to know that is the gift of it all for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. And I'm really grateful you shared that, because I think it normalizes that sentiment that a lot of people have and feel guilty. It might feel guilty for not having that instant connection.
Yeah, yeah, I did feel that way at the beginning, and had some lovely support in my corner that like shared that whatever you're feeling in that moment is okay, and it is normal. This little person who moves it normally in a relationship, you would maybe date, you would maybe get to know each other for a while, then maybe you would consider living together, and then you'd consider living together forever. And with the baby, they're all in, right?
Yeah.
You know,
No
of
choice
course
there.
it's weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Oh, it's a really good comparison that I think probably we don't often make.
You don't swipe right on your baby.
Oh my gosh. Well, Sarah, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today and share your experiences.
It was really nice to chat with you, Sarah.
Yeah, it was a total pleasure, and I can't wait for everyone to hear your birth stories.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out our website at www.shefoundhealth.ca and to sign up for our community for weekly bump blasts. Make sure to check us out on Instagram or Facebook at she.found.motherhood, and head on over to your favorite podcast app and leave a review and a 5-star rating. If you enjoyed this podcast, take a pic of yourself listening to it and share it on social. Make sure to tag us on it so we know to keep making them.